Working on a 2005 Toyota Tacoma with a 1GR-FE 4.3 liter V6. This also comes in your 4Runners, your FJ Cruisers, and the check engine light is on. So let's see what's going on with this bad boy. Has a currently approximate 257,000 miles on it, 257,140, and the check engine light came on. And they stated there was no difference in the engine function or engine drivability. There's no like difference, wasn't bucking or surging or dying on them or anything like that. So let's see what we got. Code DTCs in this ECU 3. All right. So let's go there. Read codes. P0020 A camshaft position actuator circuit open bank 2. P0345 camshaft position sensor A circuit bank 2. P0348 camshaft position sensor A circuit high bank 2. P002, that's just a repeat of the first one. P0020 pending. 345 same. 6 pending. So the last 3 are pending. So a lot of the times, this means the signal from the camshaft position sensor isn't making it to the ECU, the electronic or engine control module. And sometimes it's as simple as a rat chewing through some wires. So I'm going to have to take the front engine cover off, or the top engine cover off, I should say, and see what we can see. Got my trusty dusty Chemo 3/8 ratchet. Just tightening. Take this bolt off. Pull the engine cover up and out. Now that sensor sits right down here. Let's see what we can see. Well, first thing I see is some broken wires right there. So I think we found our issue. I don't think it's that easy all the time. You should see the other one is right there and right there. So looks like there's some wiring debris down at the bottom. So I'm gonna have to pop this intake off and fix that wiring. Thanks a lot, little rats, little Mickey Mouse wannabes. Let me show you how to take this intake off. This section actually right here, this section will actually come apart from the throttle body. Take this off, disconnect the throttle body connector. Probably some bolts. I have to take off the cover for the air filter. And then plugs and wires on that side, a bracket. This bracket here. On this 1GR-FE, to get this upper intake manifold off, there are 3 brackets, one on the very front, right near the radiator. I'm taking off. What I like to do is I'll take the top bolt out and leave the bottom one in, just get it loose. And then once I have the bracket out of the way, I'll just put the bolt back in, just so I know where the bolt goes and I don't lose anything. I do this for all 3. Right here are the other 2. There's like a little 10mm bolt that holds like a little cover on that protects the alternator. Yeah, the alternator. And then two 12mm bolts hold the bracket on. All 3 brackets. There's 2 brackets on the driver's side. What you're looking at is a view from basically the core support to the driver's side of the engine. And then there's 3 brackets. You can kind of see in the top corner, it's labeled 3 with the arrow up. We got a wrench to be able to get the bottom bolt out. You could also use a ratchet with a 12mm. I just had that handy, so that's why I did that. But it's not really hard to get this thing off. I thought it'd be a little bit harder than it was. It's really not. So just take your time. It's pretty easy to get this thing off. And then another thing is, a lot of my subscribers, like 2% of you guys that have subscribed to my channel, don't watch my videos. It's a lot of new viewers that are watching my channel. So if you're a new viewer and this has helped you out, helped you save money, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It really helps me and my family out. There, getting part of the evap system out. just a little clip holds that sucker on. And then I have, oh, that's a pulse width modulation that I just pulled the connector off for. And then that's part of the PCV valve system and actually pulling off. Most, probably most 1GR-FE engines won't have that. That's part of a catch can, oil catch can I did on this engine, so you don't see that too often. To get the airbox off in the left side part of the engine that you start with, there was 2 bolts, and then you had to remove the snorkel to the air filter. That's not really hard to do at all. The 10, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts that hold the intake on. Actually 4 bolts, and then 2 nuts, so 6. 2 nuts, 4 bolts. They're 8mm hexes. I'm getting those out right now. The long 8mm that I'm using right there, I picked it up from Home Depot. I'll put a link down in the description below where you can get that from. I'll actually put links down in the description below to all the stuff you need on this video. You're also going to need the gaskets for the upper intake manifold, the plenum. You don't want to install the old ones because after a long time they just get compressed and start leaking oil. You can leave the throttle body in place, just disconnect the electrical connector for it, and then just make sure everything's clear, like the brackets, the electrical cables. I'm showing you the back nut right there, another 12mm. Get that out of the way. The gloves I'm using, I actually bought those from Harbor Freight. I like those little suckers. Actually, they're not bad for 13 bucks when most gloves are like 20 or 60 or $100, which is ridiculous. So right here I'm just pulling up the plenum. I'm gonna flip around here so you can see those gaskets right there need to be replaced. All right, well, I found the problem. There were actually 2 sensors that had been chewed through. All right, camshaft 1 or A side number 1, and there's camshaft A side number 2. I'll put a link down in the description below to a guy who actually explains it very well. You can check that out. Right there, I'm just cleaning where the intake actually mounts to the engine. There's actually a lower intake too that is part of that, where the towel is covering right there. So there's a connector that the rat chewed through. Basically, to fix this, it's not really hard at all. It really isn't. You have to what I'm doing here is I'm just pulling back the not the insulation, but the wiring harness loom. Just pulling that back. I'm figuring out which wires are which. They're color coded, so it makes it really easy to match everything up. There's 5 wires total in what I'm messing with there. One of the sensors has 3 wires, and the other one has 2. And I didn't discover that until I opened up that wiring harness with the 5 wires. And I didn't discover that there was 2 sensors until I opened that up as well. So you just match up the colors. I have insulated butt connectors here that I'm using. I know some guys might give me crap about it. They're like, oh, you should have soldered them. You should have soldered them. Well, I didn't have time to do this. I had to get it up and running. And these butt connectors, especially when I'm melting the insulation like that, it gives a really good connection there. All right. One thing I'm going to show you, and I'm going to leave it in here. So I actually put the butt connectors on the sensors before I started bringing it into the engine. Okay. And then I had to plug in the sensor and then figure out the length of wire that I needed once it was in place to where the chewed up wiring harness starts on the engine side or towards the firewall. All right, if that makes sense. So right here, you'll see in a minute, I'm actually trying to compress or crimp the butt connector, and I just screw up. I didn't even do it right, and that, I don't want to brag or anything, but that rarely ever happens to me. And I've installed a ton of stereos in my 60s when I was 16, 17, 18 years old. Did car alarms, did stereos, LED lights, or back then it was halogen lights, you know, before LEDs were even a thing. So right there I'm plugging in the sensor, and then I get other just other wire that I had in my garage and just splice it in, right? And then once you have it spliced into the sensor side, you bring it over to where the other wires are cut, and that's how you determine your length of wire that you need. But you're going to see right here I screw up, and I want to leave my screw ups in so you guys can learn from my mistakes as well. So I'm about to crimp it here, but I screw it up because I crimped it and I didn't know the wire had fallen out. You'll see it. It's coming up right here. Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes peeled. There. I tried to crimp it. It's crimped, but the wire's not in place. Doink. See? The wire just came out. Now that means I got to cut off the whole butt connector. The wire to the wire on the sensor side is even shorter, so I can't screw this up anymore. So the second time around, I made sure that the wire was in place before I crimped it down under the butt connector. Alright? So don't do what I did. Make sure your wire is in place before you actually crimp it down. You know what I'm saying? So when I was using the lighter, you can use like a little propane torch, a little butane torch to have the butt connector. Basically, it's basically shrink wrap on the end of the butt connector, and it shrinks it down. There's a little bit of glue in there, and it seals it from water, liquids. Makes a really good tight connection. And I'll fast forward this because there's really no reason for you guys to watch this. But that's basically what you do. You just go around to all the 5 wires. You splice in the length of wire that you need onto your butt connectors. Match up your color-coded wires to the sensors, and then you're ready to rock and roll. So I'm just speeding this up for you guys. I put on some interesting music so you guys can hear that while I finish this up. Yeah, so once again, just going around crimping all the wires together. Make sure you match up the color-coded wires. You'll see like a green wire with a white stripe or a black wire with a white stripe. Just make sure you match it up to the specific sensor you're working on. Melt your heat shrink pretty good. Melt your heat shrink really good. Now I come in here with some electrical tape. Orange electrical tape. That's what I wanted to use. And I went and got some more wiring loom from O'Reilly's, and then I finished off with that. I didn't tape up the actual wires. I just taped up the wiring loom ends and then put everything back together. Like I said, it's not hard at all. Intake was very easy to get on. Replace the gaskets on your intake manifold, and you guys should be good to go. If you can, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later.